So the first language process that we'll talk about, and I'm going to go over these processes briefly because when we talk about individual disorders such as aphasia, we'll add some detail to understanding these processes. So this first process, phonological processing, as its name implies, is concerned with the processing of speech sounds, which includes not just the perception and production of speech sounds, but the sequencing or the ordering of speech sounds, because of course in every language there are rules about what kinds of sounds you can legally sequence together, right? So, for example, in English, you don't find the consonants S, Z, T being sequenced together, but you do find STR, right? So that is acceptable. Your authors, Murray and Clark, discuss kind of two subsystems of phonological processing. The first, which I just mentioned, is concerned with individual sounds and their sequencing. And the second subsystem is concerned more with the suprasegmental, or in lay terms, we could say the musical aspect, in terms of the intonation within a word, of words, the stress in syllables, for example. The storage, retrieval, and ordering of individual speech sounds is primarily a left hemisphere function. And so, for example, individuals with left hemisphere damage, like people with aphasia, can have phonological problems. And one of the ways that problem manifests is in what we would call phonemic paraphasias. Also, sometimes a synonym for phonemic paraphasia is literal paraphasia. Phonemic paraphasia is a sound substitution within a word. An example of a phonemic paraphasia would be something like a patient saying stoon instead of spoon. So they have instead of a P sound, they have substituted a T sound. Now, remember that phonological processing occurs both at the input side, the hearing and the processing of speech, and also on the production side. I mentioned here in the bullet points that some of the older definitions of apraxia of speech highlight that apraxia of speech is characterized by difficulty sequencing sounds, and so having sounds and words out of order. That can happen in apraxia of speech, but primarily speaking, if we think about the ordering of sounds, we're really talking about a phonological skill. And so people who have problems sequencing sounds, that is more characteristic of language impairments and aphasia. I've added a little table here from an article that was actually looking at phonologically based reading problems, but it gives you a little bit of a flavor of what kind of tasks we might give to figure out whether or not somebody has phonological impairments. Actually, to the best of my knowledge, the standardized tests out there to assess aphasia, for example, don't really focus on phonology in any detail. And so if we want to do that as speech pathologists right now, we kind of have to create informal tasks. And of course, looking into the research literature and seeing how people have done that themselves gives us direction on how to do it. You can see here these tasks have to do with simple repetition. Now, when you look at the difference, you'll see here that their subjects are asked to both produce words and non-words. And we'll get into that in more detail, but in general, if you think about it, processing a non-word, saying a non-word, plismatath is a non-word. Let's say I asked you to repeat that word, plismatath. There is no meaning ascribed to that word. So all of the burden of processing is on your sound system. Maintaining that word in short-term memory long enough to repeat it back to me is wholly dependent on your phonological buffer, your phonological memory, so to speak, to do that. Whereas when I ask you to repeat a real word, you already have that word stored in memory. So the repetition of it is, let's say, perhaps less stressful on your phonological system. Other tasks here include discrimination tasks like a minimal pairs tasks that are testing very early stages of sound discrimination, such as I give you two words, van and fan. Are they the same or are they not? So other tasks here include being able to hear the sounds in an order, being able to hear what sound is first, what's last, and do that kind of discrimination, blending sounds together. So you can see these tasks also have address our ability to take a word that we hear and parse it into its segments, right? Kind of to deconstruct it, right? In repetition tasks, we're constructing it, we're producing speech. In tasks where a person is being given a word, then asked to identify the end sound, for example, then they're being asked to deconstruct it. But that is a phonological skill. It requires that the person manipulate these phonological elements.